Live, our weekly Facebook Live that we're doing every Friday at 3 p.m. My name is Linet Mera. I'm the Executive Director of the Unconscious Bias Project. If you are tuning in right now, please hit a like so I know that you can actually hear me and see me well. I'm using a streaming app, so I don't get to see everything just like Facebook does. Okay. So to get us started today, I wanted to just give you a brief primer on what is UBP. If this is your first time tuning in, if this is your first time finding out about the Unconscious Bias Project, you're like, well, what is this? What is this group? What do you do? So the Unconscious Bias Project is a nonprofit that's dedicated to providing creative, evidence-based resources to bias and unconscious bias in workplaces and classrooms. And we do this with a 0% guilt trip, 100% empowerment motto. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you can't feel guilt. It doesn't mean that you can't, experience remorse. When we accidentally or unfortunately intentionally, reinforce a stereotype, whether it's a positive stereotype or something really harsh, you can be really impacting people's, full days or their whole lives. We can and probably have caused damage in the past. And there's ways to process that. And there's lots of really great resources out for folks to process that. But what we do at UBP, the Unconscious Bias Project, is we give you practical daily use tools that you can apply like that really fast. What we're doing right now during this coronavirus pandemic is we've put a series together called Together Against Bias. And what it is really two things. First off, we're experiencing the discrimination, xenophobia, outright hate crimes that are happening across the United States, across the globe, directed against Asians and Asian Americans. And we're seeing worsening inequities for all sorts of groups of people. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And we just said, okay, well, hold on. Us at UBP, we're normally doing workshops for small businesses, nonprofits, student orgs, university groups. And that's what we usually do. So now we're online. How do we transition ourselves online? Then I'm like, but wait a second, there is some serious critical problems happening. People's lives are being impacted. People are unfortunately losing lives, being attacked literally because of the fear and racism and xenophobia that's just coming up with this pandemic. So we said, hey, we have these tools, we have this experience, we have this expertise. Let's put our stuff out there. And we're doing all of this basically free. Most of the folks that are working on the Together Against Bias campaign are all volunteers. I'm not paying myself a single dime right now. And all of the equipment that I'm using is borrowed or the cheapest thing I could find. So if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, what you're learning, please consider donating to our fundraising campaign. Okay. And Selena Martinez, thank you, Selena, is posting our website into the comments. So please check out our website on the comments. Okay, let's see. Right. So have you read the article response by Alexis Crown? So last week, we had this awesome article from Alexis that was posted the week before. We talked about it in our live, and it talked about how to reduce your personal bias, how to intervene in moments of bias. Now, Alexis wrote that in for UBP in her UBP voice, let's say, our official stance, and now she's responded with a more personal take, and I think you'll really enjoy reading it. If you want to be updated on the latest and greatest from the Together Against Bias campaign, we have articles, we have short videos, we have these lives, we're posting other people's articles that are out there, we're sending out resources. We will soon be launching our very own podcast with really amazing guests. And if you want to know about all of these different resources that are coming up, if you want to know how to support us, check us out on the website. You can sign up for our mailing list there. And if you don't want to go all the way to the website, all you have to do is just DM us on our, right here on our Facebook, or there on our Facebook page, and send us your email address and we'll add you to our mailing list. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. How many folks here that are tuning in have seen or heard about the atrocious hate crimes that are happening to Asians and Asian Americans? Give me, it's a sad thing to like, but, just a reaction, a like, a heart, to let me know if you have, because that definitely affected my heart when I started reading and hearing about these things. And I started seeing my own friends who are Asian American, Pacific Islanders, talking about their experiences or hearing from their loved ones, really awful experiences that they're having. And, anything as small as shunning to as nasty as throwing acid on somebody can really, it will change how they live. And it's awful. So that's why we were talking about it. The last video I talked about personal bias reduction strategies. We're being bombarded by negative stereotypes left and right, thanks to what people in the media and politicians are saying about Chinese people, Asians, all Asians, Asian Americans. And so I talked about specific tools you can use to combat that in the last video. I also talked about how to intervene in moments of bias. And towards the end of today, I'll tell you a little bit more about bias reduction, about bystander intervention, how to be a good bias buddy. A couple of folks asked us about that, and it can be really intimidating to say something, but I'll talk about that at the end of the video. So here are my notes. So what are we doing today? So today I want to talk a little bit about institutional and systemic discrimination and what we can do about it. So some of you might be thinking, well, wow, why are Asians and Asian Americans being discriminated against so much right now? Well, surely once the pandemic is over, all of these hate crimes, all of these, problems with discrimination are just going to go away, right? Wrong. Unfortunately, history has shown us time after time that when a specific group gets blamed for anything like a disease, a war, whatever, and there's stereotypes associated with that, those associations have long-lasting effects. And in this specific case, for Asians and Asian Americans, just because they might have been painted as a model minority doesn't mean they're getting, to say it in a nice way, the poop end of the stick. The racism, the discrimination, the xenophobia has always been there. It's just being amplified, and it's being put out in the public, and it's being worsened. Just simply seeing an image of a person with Asian features with a mask on it at the top of an article about the virus is enough to strengthen that association. So there's things that we have to do to target this at all sorts of levels. So let's talk about it at the institutional level. So institutional discrimination can mean anything like a policy or lack of policy that causes or worsens discrimination towards a certain group. And so if you are a business leader, or maybe you're in the C-level, or you're part of a company or an organization, or even a governmental body that has any say in anything, you need to make a statement right now. Just a statement. Any statement saying, we do not condone discrimination against Asians and Asian Americans. Of course you don't, right? Of course you have, legalese around discrimination because it's illegal. But what we need right now is you to make a specific statement about discrimination, about xenophobia, and about hate crimes. And there are a few resources out there on how to write that, what kind of language. Essentially, you just want to be really clear. You want to have that be at the forefront of your webpage, like the same thing that you're doing. Okay, COVID-19, we're closing our in-person things. Right below that should be, read our statement about COVID-19 or whatever. And you can put on there your stance. And having that public stance, showing that you are together against bias. I know it's our hashtag, that you are together with Asians and Asian Americans to say no to this discrimination, to say no to the xenophobia, is really powerful and really important. And other businesses, you might not realize this, other businesses, other nonprofits, other volunteer groups are going to see that you're putting it out there, and they're going to want to do it too. And it's really important that we do this as business owners, as leaders in our own communities. Another thing that you can do at a basic institutional level is organize. So if you don't have resources for Asians and Asian Americans in your company, create one. Several large companies out there have, you could call them like affinity groups, to support each other. So at Salesforce, for example, there's something called Latino Force. That's a group of Latino and Latina employees at Salesforce that support each other and help each other with career advice and all those things. You can set up something very similar in your organization. If you don't have that many people, you can always search to see if you have them. And this will be important because along with your statement, you really, ideally, the next step is to have a process in place for what to do if something comes up, what to do if one of your employees perpetuates these stereotypes or engages in racism or xenophobia, what to do if one of your employees is affected by racism or xenophobia, what happens after that. So like actually develop a clear process. Okay, first steps first, you get, put on paid leave or, whatever, or you get fired immediately. I mean, I don't know. That's up to you. You're the leaders. You know how to do that. But just make it really clear and really open. That will be very powerful, both if you're a business to business, other businesses can see how you are showing up against racism and xenophobia. And it's really important for your employees and any clients if you're a B2C group. And if you're a nonprofit, anybody you serve can see that. So that's really important. If you are not, if you're don't have a business, aren't running anything, aren't employed right now, I'm sorry, there's a lot of us in the same boat. You can still advocate and organize within, for example, your own building. So I know somebody who lives in a building that is rented, and there's a couple of people that are renting out there, and they are Asian and Asian Americans, and they are being affected by the pandemic. So you can organize there. You can reach out and ask to help them. And that, that's a little more personal, but it's still about organizing and creating community. That's important. Okay, next up is systemic level. So what do we mean by systemic level? So unfortunately, discrimination for most of any single group I've ever heard of happens everywhere. So it's not just like a health, like at a hospital, it's in the health system. it's not just at a specific school, it's the educational system, right? These discrimination and racism, these things can happen sort of globally. How do you know, you're one single person, how do you start doing something against that? Well, first off, you can vote. Literally, getting out the vote is critical to actually making changes at a governmental level, whether it's your local elections, national elections, vote. If there's legislation coming up that will help protect Asians and Asian Americans from further discrimination, vote for that, advocate for that. If there isn't one, suggest it to your local leaders, suggest it to your mayor, suggest it to the governor, suggest it to the White House. Like all of these people, they need to hear your voice. So vote. Definitely use those methods of action. We can't march, right? So if we could march, we would. Share things that are anti-racist. Share things that are showing community, such as the Together Against Bias hashtag. That's something that can, in the long run, affect systemic levels, because more people are seeing you doing this. You're affecting at the community level. You're encouraging people to pay attention to these things. And sign petitions. So there's several petitions out there. I want to give a quick shout out to Chinese American Voices. If you go to ChineseAmericanVoices.com, they have this amazing petition that you can sign to add your name to I think there's at least 500 people on there that say no to discrimination and xenophobia against Asians and Asian Americans. They're calling out media, they're calling out politicians. They're like, you have to take a stance, you have to say no. Sign the petition, share it on your social media pages. Things like that do get attention, do get airtime, so you are making a difference. Another way that you can tackle racism and xenophobia during this pandemic is to make change with money. So donating to nonprofits and causes that are specifically tackling this problem, like us, like Chinese American Voices. There's lots of different groups out there. If you are tapped out on donating, you can just treat yourself to your favorite Asian-owned business. If you have one, go ahead and share it in the comments. Let us know what is your favorite Asian-owned business that you like to order from. Like if it's a restaurant, my shout out is to Spoon Korean Bistro here in Emeryville, California. They make some delicious bibimbap and all sorts of other things. Remy, my kid really likes them, so I highly encourage you to check them out. That way, if you comment with your favorite business below, we can all share in, your amazing business and help support, families and business owners and their employees directly. If you don't have the bandwidth, the spending power to uplift a small business or a large business, a business owner, you can share, right? You can say, hey, friends that have the purchasing power, I highly recommend you buy from this person or this business. They're really great, advocate for them, share them, like them. If you aren't strong on your social media, you can actually reach out to the business themselves. They are real people. They would love to know that you're a loyal customer, and ask them how you can help. Maybe they're launching a campaign. Maybe they could use somebody to, I don't know, make a graphic design or something. You never know until you ask. Lastly, I want to say a few words about, just to recap, I talked about institutional and systemic, so ways you can impact institutional and systemic bias and discrimination against Asian and Asian Americans. Yes, this can apply to all sorts of other groups. And we'll talk about that some more next week. And then I also talked about how you can use money or impact businesses with spending power, either yours or someone else's. And so next I'm going to talk a little bit about bystander intervention, which at UBP we call being a bias buddy. So bystander intervention just means you see something happen and you act. In the last video, I gave you a specific example on how to say something during a moment of a microaggression happening. Either someone's getting shunned or maybe it's an overt aggression, somebody calling them a slur, and how you can act in that moment. If we've had some people say, well, I'm a little shy, or I got shocked, I didn't know what to say, or do, you don't even have to engage the person that is saying the comment or doing the thing. All you have to do is engage with the person that's the target. You can say, so for example, this is a real example that we discussed in a podcast that we'll be launching soon with the founders of Chinese American Voices. And that is, I was at a grocery store and people were like moving away from me. And what do you do, right? So if you say something, you can be like, hey, all of you, why are you moving? It can feel a little confrontational. All you have to do is just say hi, to that person that's being targeted, that people are moving over and say, hi, I just, are you doing all right? I just wanted to check in with you. Just saying hello, all this, you can talk about anything, but if it feels too uncomfortable to address it, you could, of course, if you know them, obviously say hello. If you want to, have fun with it, be like, oh, hi, can you, do you mind scooching, this way or that way? I'm just trying to reach that. And then you can get a little closer, still 6 feet apart and with your masks on, still with your mask on. Check in with them. It's really important. And if you can't do it in the moment and you see them later in the aisle, come up to them and say, hey, I think I saw something happen that was discriminatory, and I just wanted to check in with you if you're okay. You'll never know, just saying hello and treating them like regular human beings, treating anybody like a regular human being can be really, really helpful during this time. Right. Oh, last thought. So really exciting. We are partnering with this amazing DJ, Ome. You should check her out on Facebook, Ome, to launch a party. We're going to have an event. We're going to have a celebration of the village that took for us to get to this point of UBP being able to do all these online resources. We're celebrating our community, everybody that's, coming together with us on the hashtag #TogetherAgainstBias, taking pictures with the hashtag, our partners, the folks that we've interviewed, our past clients, people that have been, members of our page for like 5 years now. We want all of you to come. Bring your friends, your family, your kids, your dogs, your cats. It'll be a party at your house. We'll make a big announcement on Monday, but just keep it in your calendars now. May 9th, 3 to 5, block it off. And yeah, we'll see you there. I will be back here next week, Friday at 3 o'clock again. If you have any questions, any concerns, something came up, you saw an article, message us, DM us. We're here for you. I'll try to address it in the next live. What else did I want to say? Oh, yeah, please donate. And, we can only do this with your support. And have a great weekend. I'll see you back here next Friday. Ciao.